Hello, thank you for joining me for this episode of Dogwood Disability Deconstructed. I am your host, Wendy Vance. Some of you will have seen our previous video, and I do want to apologize for it having been so long since we published another YouTube video, and I hope from this point forward that we will be publishing them more regularly. Since the time of the last episode, we have had many changes here at Dogwood Disability that I'm going to share with you, changes in services, changes in mission statement, and things of that nature. But before we get to all that, I do want to share one other change and happy thing that happened in this intervening time since the last episode. I published a book. It's called Finding Light. It's available on Amazon and Apple Books. On Amazon, it's available in electronic format, in paperback, and hardback. On Apple Books, it's just available in electronic format. And again, it's called Finding Light. It's by Wendy Vance, and this is a volume of poetry. It's a lot about my experience as a person with a disability woven in to words. It's also a book about faith, love, loss, death, a lot of different things like that. So I hope that you'll pick up a copy. Also, a lot of times when I do outreaches, these are with me and you can buy a copy right there, and I'll even sign it for you if you want me to. But now that I'm done with the shameless plug, let's move on with the rest of the episode. So, about Dogwood Disability Consulting. As you can see from the top of the slide, Dogwood Disability was established in 2022, but I don't want you to confuse newness with lack of experience, because that's something that is certainly not true about me. I do have 16, almost 17 years of experience working with individuals with disabilities, and a lifetime of experience as a person with a disability. But in as far as my experience in the working world, I have worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor for both the Division of Blind Services and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. I've also been a counselor supervisor within the Division of Blind Services. I've worked for Disability Rights Florida as an intake specialist and as a client assistance program advocate. I also worked for an assistive technology vendor here in the state, selling assistive technology and training on assistive technology, like training other people how to use it. And as I said, I'm also a person with a disability. So I think if it is possible to have been on a side of the vocational rehabilitation desk, I've been there. Also would add, I have dealt with a personal injury as a result of an accident, so I also understand going through that process as well. So Dogwood Disability is a limited liability corporation, which is for profit. Look, guys, as much as I would love to be able to do everything from the kindness of my heart and provide these services for free, that's not a reality. So, like I said, it is a for-profit company, therefore the services do cost. However, we are vendors. Dogwood Disability is a vendor with Division of Vocational Rehabilitation as well as the Division of Blind Services. So we are a provider that you can request when you need a vocational evaluation. We also accept all major credit cards, and cash is always welcome, but no checks, please. And we also are able to accept settlement liens for like personal injury cases if you've been in an accident and you're working with an attorney. So we can do that for you as well. The business is headquartered here in Tallahassee. However, please note that we can travel and do evaluations in other parts of the state and or have the possibility of doing those remotely as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So why do we do what we do? Dogwood Disability's mission statement is to empower people with disabilities to make informed employment choices based on thorough, individual, data-driven vocational information and to change how society and people with disabilities think about disability. So our mission has a two-part component to it, meaning, first of all, we're here to help you figure out what you can do, what you want to do, what your interests are, what your aptitudes are, what your strengths are, what your barriers are. And barriers do not necessarily mean impossibility, but it does mean that you may have some things that you have to move out of your way. What I will say about this component of it, I am always going to be honest with you, and so if you absolutely cannot work, I'm going to tell you absolutely cannot work. I'm not going to give you false hope. But similarly, I'm not just going to give you a recommendation for just any old job if you have the capability of doing something different. Now, I might give you some levels, like here's a job if you don't want to get additional education or you can't get additional education, whatever the case may be. Here's some jobs, if you add to your credentials maybe a little, and here's some more if you get additional education or if you're willing to move or different things like that. The report is going to be driven not only by test data, but what we talk about. So I'm not just going to say, well, your IQ is blah, so therefore you cannot do X, because there may be other components that allow you to do the thing that you want to do despite having an IQ that would say otherwise. So it's not a one size fits all. I'm not going to put you into a box just based on the data, but I am going to use the data to write a thorough report. The second component of this is that my goal as a provider is not only to help each individual, but to help people with disabilities in general. And how we do that is educating the public about people with disabilities, what we can do, and what we can contribute to society. And so I do that through trainings that I can provide to small and medium-sized businesses. I also do that through my blog, through our other social media such as Facebook and LinkedIn, and on those pages I share articles, and information about disability, what's going on in the disability world, what legislation might be passed, other best practices and things like that. So it's useful. I also have a resource page on my website to help you to look into other providers that can help you with different things. And so I want not only the world to see disability a little bit differently, but as you can see, I want people with disabilities to see disability different. And this is because a lot of times, unfortunately, we are told by either people we love or service providers or different things, or even feel it within ourselves, that we can't quite accomplish anything, or we feel useless, or we just feel hopeless because so many doors have been shut in our faces. So I want you to see that your disability does not make work impossible for you. It just may make it more challenging, and there may be some other things that we need to do as service providers to make that possible for you. So, in other words, I want you to not give up on yourself and to keep trying, because your disability does not have to stop you from doing, gainful employment. Now, the caveat to that, of course, is there are going to be those individuals who unfortunately, their disability is so severe that right now there aren't things that you can do. Technology has not quite caught up with everything just yet. So once again, if that is the case, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, that you can't do something, or, if college is going to be an impossibility for you, I'm going to state that. Because, college isn't for everybody, and that's okay, because there are other ways to find careers. And when I say career, I don't necessarily mean, like you're in a suit and tie every day, corporate sort of situation, or professional. I mean, a career will not be a career for me, but might be a career for somebody else, is bagging groceries or working in the grocery industry. You might start as a bagger and then go on to another department, and this and this and this, and you work your way up. So that's possible too. But it really depends on the person, and that's why these tests, and why our goal is to make everything individualized and data driven for you. Our vision is to increase gainful integrated employment of choice for people of all ability levels. And again, as much as I would like that to really be all ability levels, again, there's going to be some individuals at this point who may not be able to work, but that doesn't mean that you do not have a place, or that there is nothing for you, because there could be volunteer work, there could be other things that you could do that are avocational, meaning you're not working, but it's something where you get to contribute and be included and participate. So what do we do? Now, I did talk to you a little bit about what we do when I was on the previous slide. However, I wanted to share a little bit more with you about what it is that we do as an organization. Our first and most prominent service would be vocational evaluations. We do both comprehensive and situational. Now, a comprehensive evaluation is basically, a holistic evaluation. We're going to look at different things, from independent living to work history to educational history to aptitudes, interests, abilities, those kind of things. We're also able to do situational evaluations. This also has a holistic approach, but it adds the element of doing work sampling to it. So I might be looking at you doing an actual job, either simulated or on your job site. So that adds a little bit extra component beyond the paper and pencil test. And I say paper and pencil, but for me, prominently, I do mostly electronically based testing, and this really is to reduce germ spread, because with a device, we can wipe that off with a sanitary wipe, antibacterial type of wipe, whereas with paper and pencil testing, you're just transferring it from one person to another, and there really is no way to clean or sanitize that. So, not to say that there is no availability for paper and pencil. If that's, what you need, then by all means, the paper and pencil version will be provided. But that's really going to depend from person to person. I can do evaluations in person or virtually. If it's in person, I will I'll provide you with the equipment, so like an iPad, to take the testing. So you won't have to worry about that. Now, if it's virtual, the client does need to provide their equipment, because I can't quite send an iPad to you and have you send it back to me. So again, as client, you will need to provide that, whether it's an iPad, computer, whatever, and I will need to know what kind of device you're using, because that will go into part of my test selection, because I need to match tests that with your device. Okay, and so again, these services can be paid for private pay, case settlement liens, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or Division of Blind Services and vendor with both of those. And we'll talk a little bit more about evaluations in a moment. Other services that can be provided, I do see here on this slide there's an error, and I will correct it. This should say 6 to 12 advocacy for students with disabilities. Really, my expertise and focus is on transition age students, so starting that middle school area and beyond. I will be honest that I really don't have a lot of experience in the elementary school arena, and that is why we're removing the kindergarten through 6th grade, because our focus at Dogwood Disability really is employment, getting people into employment, and education is a big component of that, making sure you have the foundation. But for the purposes of this agency, we're going to start at 6th grade and move forward and work with those transition age students who are looking towards employment. In that, I can provide an IEP or 504 review. An IEP or 504 review will include me looking at your IEP or 504, breaking it down, seeing what's good about it, what's bad about it, making some recommendations for improvement, and you'll get a report from me telling you what is good, bad, ugly, and what can be improved in this IEP or 504. The other thing that I can provide for you is technical support during the IEP process, meaning I can go sit with you in a meeting and provide you some technical support during the meeting. This is not necessarily a full-on investigation or heavy advocacy. These are services that can be provided. However, I will tell you there are other agencies that can provide these services that have attorneys and that are in fact free, because again, all of my services are paid services. And the IEP and 504 services, those are private pay. I don't really know of any other agency that will help you with that. Disability etiquette, accessibility, inclusion trainings. This is part of what I was talking about on the last slide, part of the educational piece, changing the way people think about disability. So this is to small and medium-sized businesses, community organizations, churches, that kind of thing. Our YouTube channel, so on this channel from time to time, I will do episodes that deal with disability issues and taking away some of that stigma and what is true about disability. What is a myth about disability? You kind of call it the Mythbusters of disability. So that will be like some of the episodes that you will see here. So to get that training about the importance of accessibility and inclusion and an end to ableism and that kind of thing. Community resource list. So this is an ever-developing resource list on the Dogwood Disability website. I encourage you to go check it out, and I do try to add stuff new to there from time to time. There hasn't been an update recently, and so hopefully soon I will be adding some new things to that. The blog. This is both informational, inspirational, and I tried to make it an empowering blog. So there's a variety of articles there covering lots of different issues, voting, work, the importance of inclusion. So I encourage you to check that out as well. And that is also free. So I want to spend a couple of minutes with you talking about what makes a quality vocational evaluation. I am not ignorant. I know there's plenty of evaluators out there. There's a lot of great evaluators out there. I'm not going to try and knock anybody else, because there really are some great evaluators out there. However, There's also some not so great evaluators out there, and you get a lot of cookie cutter evaluations, copy and paste, that kind of thing, and that may not necessarily be completely individualized or holistic. So I want to talk to you, like I said, about what makes a quality vocational evaluation and why, I feel like Dogwood Disability evaluations are quality, that you're going to get what you pay for and get some very good holistic information. So a quality evaluation has some components to it. The first being that it is individualized. It's not a cookie cutter, so everybody who comes to me and says that they don't know what they want to do or have, this skill or that skill, that they're all going to be placed at Lowe's. Okay, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be individualized. What is the specific information telling me about this specific person? Because each person is different. Each person has different interests. Each person has limitations. Just similarly to, let's say, you have two people with the exact same visual disability, same diagnosis, same acuity, same everything. The fact of the matter remains that those two individuals may or may not function similarly. Whereas one person may be very independent, the other person may not be very independent, really depending on their environments, their training, what they have had opportunities to learn and develop. So those two people are going to have very different recommendations and very different limitations in what their needs are to get to whatever their job goal is. So, you can't just take certain factors and say, because these two people have this alike, then the evaluation must be alike. So the evaluation needs to be individualized, specific to that person, down to what tests are chosen. So you may see several evaluations that use the same tests because it would apply to different groups. They're norm reference for particular groups, so you would use that test. But then again, you may see a test over here that I use, but I don't use it over here because it's not right for that person. So the tests that I will use are determined during the initial interview. When I'm talking to the person, I'm trying to find out what their abilities are, what their skill level is, whether or not they're going to need paper and pencil, whether or not they can use electronics, is a person able to read? Does a person need a picture representation of the different test stimuli? So again, really depends from person to person. Another important element of a quality vocational evaluation is that it is multifaceted. So at one point during one of the earlier slides, I told you I'm not going to base information just on an IQ test or just on an achievement test, because it needs to be multiple elements. How do those things interwork with one another? So it's information that I get from talking to you, from talking to your counselor. If there are other people that you want to provide information about you, from information that your counselor or you give me from previous tests, like medical tests, psychological evaluations, IEPs, that kind of thing. So it's going to be all of your information, taking a look at you from different angles, and things of that nature. Because if you just look at one element, that's only one dimensional. It's only going to tell me one thing about you, and that's not going to make for a good report. or even give you appropriate choices. Because remember, the purpose here is to help you make that informed choice, meaning here's the information about me, and how do I then use that to make a career choice? What about me lines up with a certain career? It includes information about strengths and barriers. We don't want to just look at where somebody's strong. We also don't want to just look at where somebody is weak. Because if we only look at that one area, then we don't see the whole person. And while somebody might have a barrier that could possibly be overcome, so we need recommendations and changes that can be made for that. But also somebody might have some specific strengths, and we can draw from that, as well. So you want to look at both things, not just one thing. Includes a labor market analysis. Okay, so the results show that you would be, I don't know, an excellent computer technician, let's say. But let's assume for a moment that while that would be a great goal for you, it matches all your interests, your needs, your aptitudes, your abilities, strengths, barriers, everything lines up. But let's say, for instance, the job market for a computer technician is on the decline in your area. Well, you would want to know that. It may be that it is increasing in another area, so through the whole nation there may be an uptick, but through your particular area there may be a decrease. So that would also tell you too, if you really want to go into this field, then you may have to consider relocation as a possibility of something that you need to do in order to be successful. So that's another component of your decision making process. Can I stay where I am? Do I need to go somewhere else? Or do I need to possibly look at another job because perhaps this particular job is being phased out, or there's just not enough job openings? Maybe people get into certain jobs and they don't leave for a really long time, although that has not been the trend for a little while. The trend has been people going from this job to this job, kind of thing. And so people not staying for a super long time. That doesn't mean never, or that certain fields don't have that happen. So that's another component there of, like I said, that informed vocational decision-making process. Provides recommendations for modifications and accommodations that may reduce barriers to employment. So another component of a not very good, but quality vocational evaluation is you're also going to have these recommendations for what things do I need to make it possible for me to enter this job. It is very possible that you have the abilities and the aptitudes and the interest to enter a certain field, but there are certain components of your disability which would make that difficult. Well, there may be accommodations that can be applied that would then make that job accessible to you. For instance, I could not do any job, regardless of what it is, that involves computers if I did not have screen enlargement or magnification software, because I need to see what's on my computer screen and I'm visually impaired. So I do that by accessing magnification, whether it's the inbuilt magnification program in my computer system or a separate magnification program that can be purchased, like Zoom Text, for instance, which is the one that I predominantly use. Or there could be another device or accommodation, or honestly, accommodations can be very small and simple, like having a rubber band on something. Say, for instance, you have 2 bottles of a chemical you're supposed to use on your job. Well, And how do you tell them apart if you can't see very well? Well, you could use like a rubber band around one bottle, and you know that that bottle that has the rubber band is X chemical and the other one is Y chemical. And so, like I said, some accommodations can be very simple and inexpensive. So, you don't have to always think about technology, but those will be some of the things I'd recommend. Also, on how to reduce barriers, because say for instance your barrier is that you have difficulty with reading. Well, there are lots of adult literacy programs out there, so that might be something that one could engage in to reduce a barrier. And so, also, along with that, kind of giving you an idea of about how much time it's going to take. Like, if a training course takes, say, 3 months, then I would put in the report, you know, the XYZ can start the training course and it's going to take 3 months. So that way, you will have that idea that that's how long that training or what have you is going to take. Provides individual with data-driven career options. So the options, the things that I give you at the end of this report are a culmination of all the data that has been collected and looking at that information and coming together and saying, all right, a person with these personality traits, with these kind of interests, what have you, match and align with these careers, because there is a certain science behind that, in matching you with a career. Because just like you have certain interests and certain things you're strong at, certain careers kind of require that you have certain strengths or interests or education or work experience, so we can use that information to match you with things that are a good fit for you. Because what we know about work and careers is if someone does not have the strengths, the abilities, the interests in a particular job or career, they're most likely not going to be successful and most likely not going to stay in those jobs. So if we can do a good job matching in the beginning, then we have a lot more successful and long lasting placements, so that you're not necessarily having to go back through services over and over again, or you're not having a client come back through services over and over again. So I've talked about this a little bit, using your vocational evaluation results. So as a client, what can you do with a vocational evaluation and results? So again, I want to hammer home, it helps you make an informed vocational choice. You can make a choice. You can go in and you can see your counselor today and you can say, I want to be a rocket scientist. And that's what you think you want to do because I don't know, you watched a TV show, like one that was big a few years ago is everybody wanted to be a crime scene investigator because that's what was on TV. And so kind of that is, or a video game designer. That was the other big one that I had come into my office a lot. And so this is what people want to do because this is what they had experience with. That's what they saw out there. But just because something is available, and you think, well, I play lots of video games, so surely I'd be a great video game designer. That may or may not be true, and or there may not be enough available jobs to make that possible for you. So there again comes into the labor market research. So having all the information about your interests, your abilities, limitations, strengths, all that can assist with making that informed choice, where you can say, all right, here are my choices, here's the information about me, which one is kind of best for me. And again, you're going to get multiple options. I'm not going to make the choice for you. It's still your choice, just giving you those recommendations. Explore options to improve areas of deficit. So, none of us are perfect, and every one of us has some deficits. We have things that we're good at, we have things that we're not so great at, and those could be deficits. Other deficits, could be things like, let's say, for instance, I can't use my right hand. Well, maybe I need it. I know you don't want to hear this, but that then is a deficit because it's a minus. You can't use this hand. But there may be ways around that, like a one-handed keyboard or some other aid or assistive technology that would allow you to do the task that you would normally do, say, with your right hand, but now you can use the device or accommodation to perform that same task. So you overcome the thing that was missing or the deficit. Um, Explore suggested accommodations and modifications that may mitigate workplace barriers. I don't know, there's a lot of big words in there, but again, like the other example, so overcoming deficits can be education, it can be accommodations, so or modifications to the job. Say for instance, um, let's say that one of the duties of the job is carrying paper from a specific point in the job site to your office. Okay, maybe you can't do that because of an injury. Well, let's say that that's only like 1% or 2% of the job. Well, that particular part of the job could be reallocated to someone else. So someone could be assigned to bring you paper. It's a modification to your job duties, but it's not necessarily an essential job duty, so it can be reallocated, or there could be an accommodation. And so those are things that can be explored. Another like modification might be that you need a flexible schedule. Let's say, for instance, that you um, deal with a lot of fatigue as a part of your disability. Well, you might need a flexible schedule because there may be some days when you are just too exhausted to do anything, but maybe the next day you're really up and pumped and you can work longer. So we might need um, that flexible schedule to accommodate that. So that could be a modification in your scheduling, or scheduling based on when transportation is available to you, because not every city has transportation all the time, um, 7 days a week or anything like that. So there may have to be some modifications for that purpose, among other things, but those are just a few examples. Documentation when applying for benefits like Social Security. Um, no, I'm not saying like I can't be an evaluator for Social Security right now. I'm not approved for that. However, this is not to say that you could not submit your vocational evaluation as part of your Social Security package. It's just that I'm not an evaluator that you can choose through the Social Security Administration. But um, I can write the reports as the Social Security Administration would need them with all of those components. And actually, you can, if you look on my website, there is a sample report there that is written with all the components that Social Security Administration would need. To know that you had a disability and what accommodations need to be made. What deficits you have, whether or not I'm making a recommendation for employment, and if so, what level of employment, like sedentary, light duty, heavy, those kind of things. They know what physical ability you have to work. A documentation of employment and income potential um, after an injury. So sometimes when we're in an accident or injured, those injuries don't go away. They become a permanent part of who we are. And they can change our ability to work, how much work, um, what we can make. Say, for instance, if you were a construction worker prior to an accident, you may have lost the ability to walk, sit, stand, climb, carry a certain amount. Maybe your reaction time is down, just different things that could happen. So this could change your employment opportunities and your income opportunities. And let's say, for instance, um, you don't have a higher level of education. Well, there might not be something that you could change into because you're now you're able to do manual labor and you haven't received the training to do something beyond that. So it is possible that in order to be able to work, you may have to mm, advance your training, go to a higher level of training, go back to tech school, go to college, um, get a certificate program, something that will allow you to work in a different field or a different part of your field. Like, say, for instance, you're a nurse and you get injured. Well, you can't lift patients ever anymore. You can't do the physical things that you used to do as a nurse. But maybe you could be a nurse case manager and sit in an office and do paperwork stuff or help clients to find or patients to find resources for their medicines and medical care. So that's another option, but it may require some more training. So that then is something else that the vocational evaluation could help you know about, and kind of help you figure it out, um, what you can do after this injury, because it's not necessarily something that everybody knows. And when you sustain a life-changing injury like that, you might need somebody to help you um, find out what these things are. Um, kind of give somebody some hope that there is life after this injury. So if you think that you would like to contact me about services or getting an evaluation or to find out a little bit more to obtain a sample copy of a report so you can think about that a little bit more, you can contact us in a number of ways. This is our mailing address, Dogwood Disability Consulting, LLC, 2755 Raintree Circle, Tallahassee, Florida, 32308. And the phone number is 800-493-9810. And you can reach us on the web at dogwooddisability.com. And again, that contains our resource list and our blog. Well, my blog, because I'm usually the one writing for it. And then the email address to reach me is Wendy at dogwooddisability.com. So I look forward to hearing from you guys and getting to help you explore your career future. I'm really excited to help you find that thing that wakes you up in the morning and makes you so excited to get going every day and to make money. All right. Thank you again for joining me here on this episode of Dogwood Disability Deconstructed. I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, y'all.